Yo, what's up? This is Alex from SNC, better known as Styles&complete, and I'm going to give you 5 tips of things that you should know when using Reason. Let's get to it. All right. So for tip 1, um it's going to be about building your initial patch. This is going to be a kind of longer one because this is super important, so when you start making beats, you can just instantly start laying down whatever you were, if you have an idea in your head, a melody, so you can just get going. How you do that is you go over here to your um, properties, and I get there always using quick keys, which I'll get to in a second, but command comma will bring this up really quick, and you got to bring this up a lot to go in here, so you might as well get that quick key down, command comma. Um, so I go in here, go to general, and then I put my track, whatever one that I made for my initial track, right here by clicking this menu, and then it'll populate on the side over here. So then you just grab whatever beat, which mine was initial track 2020, and then it will go in there. Um, so what I did for mine was I created a reference track for this is for when you're in the middle of the mix, even when you're working on your song and you have another record that's maybe similar, has some parts in it that you want to use, it's always good to have a reference track. So this one, I just have one up here. I don't even know what this is. It was just something I used for something else, but it might work good for like hip hop beats. So up here, I got this thing called the Flower Audio Loudness Meter. I'll leave a link in below, but this is just great because I get to see how loud my music's coming. And if you flip around to the back here, I plug my main output straight into here, and then I put the reference track I'm using directly out into the reference input. So that way it's never going into the main input, it's only going into here. And then what I do is I go up here to options. I go to keyboard control edit mode. And then I usually just use the letter N, but I double click here, put the letter N. And what that does, and then I go back up here, and then turn it back off. And what that does is makes it now, so I'm all about quick keys. So now I hit the letter N and I go from main to reference. So that's a really quick way so I can now listen back and forth as I'm working on something and make sure I'm doing what, people that are making hit records are doing. So that's the first thing for initial patch. Also, another big thing I do, which I'll get into like why later, but I do a control room out, and this is a sidechain. This is a sidechain input for your master um, up here. So what this does is I hook up. I usually just hook up an equalizer to it, and then I take out the bass, and that way when you do put a compressor on it, you're not overworking it by having all these low subs being compressed. These are getting sent then through a separate channel, so this way your master is just going through here and all the bass is just still going straight out your master, so you don't have to worry about that messing up your compression on the rest of your track, which is like a huge tip that I don't see very many people doing. But like, if you're just like working your compressor super hard with bass, it's going to be really messing up the sound of your track. So I'll get into that in another tutorial. If you guys want to see that, just leave it in the comments. So what else do I do here? Another big thing I like to do is always use MIDI for my drums. I got into it for a while where I was using audio, and the reason I stopped is because after so long, like when I'm pretty much done with the beat, I might sit back and say, hey, I don't like this kick, I want a different kick. Well, when you have MIDI, you can easily just replace the kick right here, but if you're doing it on audio, you can't replace things later. You have to do it one by one and just sit here and go like this over and over, and it's no fun. So This is a great way to just keep it so, you know, again, to save time if you want to change something in the future. The way I set up my drums on here is I'll put my most often used kick, which is this rat kick. And this is more for like trap and like hip hop, but it can also be used for, you know, whatever, but it's a really good solid kick. So I put that in. Also set up this, I'll just show you how I set up the grain so it works the best. So when you get something new going on in this grain, there's a couple things you have to do. Let's see. Let's just put a anything in here. All right, and hold on one second. All right, I'm back. So let's just find anything here. A kick. And now there's a couple things to do with the grain. The first thing you want to do is stretch this out all the way. Otherwise, you're only going to be playing to there and it's going to cut off soon and it's going to sound like shit. But sometimes you might like that. Like a little clicky kind of top kick. Then the next big thing to do is to take this from forward loop and change it to one shot so it doesn't repeat if you're holding down the key. Next thing I do is change this to tape. If I want to, I usually have to turn up the volume. It seems like it's like always quieter on here, so you could just crank that up. I'll move this up just to, and I usually keep these a little bit down, but on a kick, I'm going to put the attack all the way down because I want that to snap in right away. And then you can put it on retrig. And that's it. And yeah, and that's how I set up all my grains. I also do it in a combinator, and for this is the 808 I use, one of the 808s I use. And I put, another big thing I use a lot is scream with the tape saturator. And I often find it really good if you turn this up, turn them both up, you get pretty much a straight saturation. If you bring this down a couple notches, you'll take some of those super high frequencies off. I just usually go down like literally that far. But I'll use this for vocals, all kinds of stuff. You take this down, it kind of beefs it up a little bit more. So I usually keep this around here. And that's a great setting just for beefing up your bass a little bit. But then this is another little magic trick, because this Audiomatic Retro Transformer, I use this, I think that's what it's called, but I use that on the bottom preset. And what that does, it takes the bass from like kind of hitting to like really hitting good. And I use this on every single bass pretty much I use, unless I don't want it to hit really hard, which is pretty rare. And then yeah, so I built these and I made these combinators, and that way I've just got it all ready to go. I can collapse them all down and just have them all. I also color coordinated everything, or actually they did it by itself, but I usually color coordinate. And then I you know, just labeled everything: 808 copy, grain, kick, Zay clap, which I have this outside of here. This can go back in. And then yeah, so that's how I get the drums ready, all in grains. And that way, if I also set up pitch, so I go ahead and I right click on the automation. Let's just open it and do it from here so we can see. So I put this on whatever you want, 7, 12, and then I hold Alt, click it, and that's what creates the automation lane. And then if you go down here to the automation lane, they're already there. So that way, if I'm doing a cool bass that's, you know, gonna be you know, bending up and down, I'm already ready to go for that. So on this one I have one bass that kind of hits more like a longer one, and then I have this one which is more of like that, like the baby. I would really go out and get these kits. If you can, the spins kits, it's really dope. Um, and then for the hi-hats, I go ahead and I just lay down a little pattern just to like get it started, and then I usually just will put it on mute then. Oops. By just pressing M, highlighting and clicking M, and that way it's ready for me to go. I don't have to start a new lane, even though that's not hard to just, you know, quickly go like this. But I rather just be there. It's just quicker for me to get started. So I just keep all these on mute and put one in the lane to start. This one, sweeps, is super easy. Most of the time in tracks I like to have like whooshes going up and down. I'll just play it real quick. Again, I put that on mute, and I already put the automation lanes in there, and I've got a side chain on it. So I often use that, so I might as well have it there, right? So on this one, it's super simple. All I do is open up an initial patch, which I'll just do it again, even though it's super simple. Where's the initial patch? I think it's reset now. Reset device, there we go. Okay, so I just go to noise, leave it on white. I take the filter frequency, I turn off the filter envelope. I put the amp envelope on all the way, and then I alt click this, and boom, you got your, if this wasn't here, we'll just do it again to see. Alt click, boom, pops right up. Now I draw in my automation lane, press Q to, and I'm using, you know, quick keys the whole time. Then I add in my whatever I want, and then just put everything on mute. Alright, so that's pretty much that for the initial patch. Let's go to the next tip, which is, let me look at my phone, is to populate this sidebar. As you can see, mine is fully populated with stuff. And this is just huge for workflow. I mean, you don't want to be sitting here looking through, you know, I have my packs folder with all the packs that we got, and you don't want to sit here and have to go through here every single time. But it's just, organization is key to making a lot of beats. So I got all my favorite stuff right here. And all you do to do that is you find your sound, or you find whatever you want by going to your home, and then you go through to wherever your stuff is, which my stuff's, let's see, deep in here. Packs. And then when you find one that you really like this one is dope, I should have this over there, and then you just drag it over, boom. And then I usually order them from like my most used to my least used, and that way it's just super quick. You can always just have everything at your fingertips. These are awesome if you don't have these Havoc leads for Serum. I really love these. So okay, that's that thing. The sidebar, populating the sidebar, huge. Alright, next step will be use grains for drum sounds. I'm not going to go over that too much because I just kind of did already. But using grains for drum sounds, again, you can just do so much with them, and they're all in their own lane. Again, also, if you're into you know, drum machines and stuff, then I would hook all these up to one drum machine, but still have grains working as your drums. And that's another video. If you guys want me to show you that, just let me know. Any other videos you guys want, just let me know, because it's hard for me to like think of like really what you guys want. But yeah, so the grain, I already went over that though. Just using it for drums is great. You can manipulate everything. When you put the drum sound in there, you can press set and it'll automatically find the key for you. Sometimes it doesn't work perfect if the sound is like not very clear, or if it's like, obviously if it's like a chord or something, it's not going to work as good. But for simple like bass sounds and stuff, it works pretty good. You just hit set, and then it'll automatically set to what it is. If it messes up sometimes, then you just move these around and fix it. And Um, yeah, it works really good. Another thing you could do on if you're having trouble with your putting your like bass in tune and stuff is I use this to tune my guitar and stuff. It's these G um, effects. They're actually free. I downloaded this on online. It's called G Tune, and G Tune is just a little tuner. So like if I were to hit this, let's see, wrong one, wrong one. This is kind of short, so they're not popping up as good, but as you can see, it works better for longer notes. But this is just a little thing I use to make sure stuff's in tune. Another way to make sure stuff's in tune is to just open up the Neptune. Now when you play a note, it will go in the Neptune and tell you what it is. So that's a really easy way to figure out the key to stuff when you're using the grains. Alright, on to the next step, and that is to know your quick keys. Knowing your quick keys is essential in any DAW. In Reason, I literally don't click up here for anything except for when I just did the keyboard control. Everything I do is a quick key. So if you leave your fingers on QWERTY, which is the QWERTY, so I just leave my pinky on the Q and my pointer on the R, and that way I know my hand's always there. And then when I switch these, so wait, let me take this off. So when I switch these, you got all your different things up here. Q, W, E, R, T, Y, U. And that's pretty simple. I mean, they're all in a row, so that's huge. Another big one you gotta know the quick key to is snap. And as you can see, if you hover over it, it tells you what the quick key is already. But you're gonna want to have snap on and off so you can just quickly go back and forth. Another big one that's good to have on, though, this isn't a quick key, but just leaving it on grid so you don't have to keep changing these every time you go. And those of you that don't have Reason 11 yet, that's a big update for me when they did this. Another quick key I use all the time is G and H. G makes it smaller, H makes it bigger, and I often just use that when I'm just like, I can hold it down, and it's just a quick way instead of having to put my mouse down here and do all this. And another thing you could do is you could hold command and with 2 fingers scroll, and you can make it huge or really small just with 2 fingers by scrolling diagonal. Excuse me, that was my phone. So yeah, so that's really big. Another quick key I use would be the loop key. So if I'm highlighting something, I just press the letter P and then you create a loop. So that's huge. When I'm in the middle of working on something, I could just hit the P and just automatically go to where I'm going. And if I hit the letter Z, I automatically zoom in to what I'm working on. So those keys can go hand in hand sometimes. And another one, I'll just do one more quick key that I use all the time, and that would be comma. And comma adds another lane to your track. And then so does the period button. I didn't even know that. But the reason I didn't know that is because the period button works if you have an audio track and you press the period button, you create you copy that audio track, but then you put the other one on mute, and it works great for when you're recording people. So that's good on those. Let's go to the next thing. The next thing is just navigating quicker with loop selection and returning to the last starting point, and just different little tricks just to make your navigation quicker. So one big thing that I see people doing sometimes that's taking them a lot of time is usually when you're in the middle of a beat, let's say this is like let's say this loop section is my verse part and I want to put this over here. So let's say I have, let's just add tons of tracks. So this thing is long, right? And then down here, okay, that's enough reason, thank you. So like down here, let's just put something so we can see. This track is a MIDI track, that's why it looks like that. It's an alien track on the wrong lane. But so here, if I just want to take just this section, instead of grabbing here and just going like this and waiting for it to go all the way down, there's a quicker way to do that, and that's you take one finger, you grab this, and you take your other two fingers. So this is all three fingers on the mouse pad, and this is with a Mac, by the way. And then you scroll down with your two fingers, and you go instantly to the top to the bottom, which is huge when you're in the process of sequencing your song. So then I just grab my clip, which I didn't put a proper cut there, and I move it. And I always use these locators to help me where, like, once you zoom in, because sometimes you don't want to mess up and miss one of these little ones. So I zoom in a lot, and still zooming in a lot, it's the same deal. I just grab here, I look for my other locator that I set to tell myself where to go, scroll all the way down with two fingers, and boom, I got the whole track. Scroll back out using J and pretend, okay, and then if I want to grab this here, I just hold Alt, carry it over there, and oops, I didn't press S. So while I'm still holding this clip, just take my finger off of Alt, I press S, and I put my finger back on Alt, and there we go, we're snapped in place. So that's that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is just some quick tips to make your workflow a lot better in Reason. And if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment telling us what more videos we should do in the future, and tell me how I did. Tell me what I need to fix. You know, this is the first video, so any feedback would be much appreciated. And yeah, that's it. You guys have a good one.